Feelings are so much easier to control than facts. And if you're afraid of this podcast coming to an end, well, we understand. We desire to keep these shenanigans going for as long as you're trapped here in the Matrix with us. All you have to do is portal over to patreon.com/WassessCastProductions. For less than the cost of your reality crumbling, you get bonus content, early access, and exclusive neural pathways just for you. This isn't a glitch. It's patreon.com/WassessCastProductions. Enjoy the show.
Take a risk. Take a risk. And I'll show you how to eat the rabbit hole.
Everything was simpler before. Everyone wanted to be free. But now it's like they've given up. Almost like they've never dared to once watch the After Credits cast. The only film podcast to recode ourselves from the ground up one more time. Why? Because the story doesn't end. Not our story, at least. I'm your host, AJ Waseska, and I'm joined by Ryan Metters.
I'm sitting here with a rubber duck on my head.
I mean, where else would you put that rubber duck? Episode intro song this week will still continue to be Red Pill, Blue Pill. I just really like it. I think it fits the season for the obvious reason. If you wish to follow us on various platforms of choice, we got YouTube, Acast, Apple, Google Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and so much more. You can also follow us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. And there's an email you can email us at if we still are able to access it. You know, the Matrix might lock us out, the grid, whatever. Ryan, what email could they send that to?
That email is unnecessary sequels are still unnecessary regardless of how well they're done. Excuse me. Sorry. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
But Ryan, it had so much heart and depth and meaning and purpose.
It was good. It's still unnecessary.
Well, in case you hadn't caught on to what we're doing today, we're wrapping up 2021 with the latest of the films in the Matrix series, Matrix Resurrections. Written and directed by Lana Wachowski, and and additional writing credits to David Mitchell and Alexander Hemon. Hemon. Is it R or maybe double check, make sure I type this right. Yep, Hemon. Yep. Well, sometimes when the R and the N are right next to each other and it's small enough, it looks like an M. So I just want to make sure.
I understand.
This movie released literally 24 hours ago. I don't have box office numbers, so I am sorry for those who were expecting that. You ain't getting them today. And I will edit this soon enough to get uploaded for next week, so it will definitely not get that edited in. I assume it made numbers that aren't going to be anywhere near as impressive as Spider-Man's numbers, because Spider-Man is everywhere, dominating the box office. Matrix, as much goodwill as it has earned, unfortunately is not Spider-Man.
That's very fair. That's very fair.
We have a cast, including some names I'm definitely going to mispronounce, but they include Toby Onwumere. I'm going to go with that.
Sure.
Max Riemelt. Lambert Wilson. God, how do you pronounce this one? Priyanka Chopra. Jonas. 3 names, too, by the way. Christina Ricci. Jada Pinkett Smith. Jessica Henwick. Jonathan Groff. Yahya Abdul Mateen II, the second. However you want to go with that.
2? Like he's a fucking sequel. Come on, Eric.
Listen, I see the 2. I immediately say the 2. I don't think the second.
Sorry.
Neil Patrick Harris in a surprisingly good role. Carrie Ann Moss, and of course, the dude himself, Keanu Reeves.
Yes, sir.
We have a few fun facts for us. Ryan, what fun facts do you have for me today?
All right, we do have 3 for this evening. According to Lana Wachowski, her decision to bring back Neo and Trinity for the sequel was inspired by the loss of both of her parents, who died only 5 weeks apart, and a close friend. The writing process was her way of comforting herself in the face of death. She also defines Neo and Trinity as the two most important characters in her life. For Lily Wachowski, however, this sense of loss was part of her decision to not return to the franchise. In her own words, quote, "I didn't want to have gone through my transition and gone through this massive upheaval in my life, the sense of loss from my mom and dad, to want to go back to something that I had done before," end quote. Absolutely respectable. And
On both accounts.
I understand. Yeah, on both accounts. Yeah.
I'm not sure how I would handle my folks' passing. I don't know if I would do the staying away from the past or embracing it. I'm not sure what I'd do. That's an interesting way to look at it.
Yeah. I mean, there's the at least for me, if I were to try and kind of work my parents passing into a narrative sense, there would be a part of me that would want to do better by them, or to see their life as how I wish it would have gone as opposed to how it did. So I'm not sure how healthy either of those are, because I'm not a therapist. But I understand the reactions to both of the Wachowskis to that. So kudos on them. Next up, the first Matrix movie to not feature Lawrence Fishburne as Morpheus. When asked if he would be cast in The Matrix Resurrections, 2021, Fishburne replied, "No, I have not been invited. Maybe that will make me write another play. I'm looking for the blessing in that. I wish them well, and I hope it's great." Unquote. However, despite the 2005 game, The Matrix Online, having seemingly shown Morpheus' death, and therefore a reason for Fishburne's absence, it was confirmed on September 9th, 2021, that Yahya Abdul-Mateen II sequel would be assuming the role.
Even though we can all agree it's not the Morpheus, but something.
It's not
like
technically the Morpheus, right? You right. We'll get into that. Third and final fun fact: Hugo Weaving was actually originally approached to reprise his role as Agent Smith, but he had to turn it down due to scheduling conflicts with other films. To which I'm glad, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, I think it works the way it does. I'm curious as to why it works, though. Like, I'm still trying to figure that out. But we'll get there.
We'll get there.
Initial thoughts. I think it's a solid return to Matrix. I honestly had lower expectations of it. In terms of just getting back to it. Because, like, how do you follow up what we ended with? Like, even if the ending we had was not great, it was still an ending. Things were concluded. So, coming back to it's definitely weird. But it works in a lot of ways. It's not the most subtle film by any stretch of the imagination, but I think after two sequels that were a little obtuse, I think that's a fine adjustment to make.
Man, I don't know. Okay. Initial thoughts, short and sweet. I liked the movie. I thought it was well executed for the most part. I still feel that it was amazingly unnecessary, and it had a very tall hill to climb to make me feel like it's a worthy addition, because I loved the original trilogy, and it didn't really get there. It doesn't mean it was a bad movie, but it doesn't really justify adding on to the original trilogy in my mind.
Well, Ryan, I'm gonna throw a synopsis your way, and we'll see if we can change your mind, or
see,
or we'll just make it even more entrenched. We'll find out. The movie begins with us reliving the moments of the first Matrix, but through the lens of an audience insert character who is familiar with the events of the trilogy. She wants to find Neo and bring him back to stop a new big bad from being bad. She and Discount Morpheus, not racist, find him working as a slave to a AAA game developer, quashing his dreams in an effort to regurgitate low-quality sequels full of microtransactions.
Oh, God.
All while getting therapy from Barney Stinson, because you know that's always great. But Discount Morpheus manages to awaken Neo from the hold of the Matrix once again. They tell him a lot's changed. Some machines are working with the humans now for peace and unity. Niobe is now the leader of the humans, and Trinity is somehow still alive. And the other core processor running the world made by Barney the Anal Stinton.
God damn it.
Thus, Neo insists the new characters whose names you'll barely remember go on a suicidal mission to heist his girlfriend from the Matrix because love is more important than the survival of the human race. The first attempt to reach her goes poorly, as Smith is back, sort of. Also not sure a racist. Do I need to say that if the guy's white in recast? I don't know, I'm not sure. Anyway, the Anal stops Neo from by using video game mechanic that was overplayed in the 2000s. Neo can't find the nostalgia and has to come up... Oh, can't fight the nostalgia. That's what I was trying to remember there. He can't fight the nostalgia and has to come up with a new solution. That's when a little girl you probably barely remember from Matrix 3 shows up, but played by a new actress, so that's all fine now. Also...
I remembered Sati. Leave me alone.
Also, not racist. I mean, she's older and played an aging character, so I guess, recast is fair there. Anyway, she hatches a plan more elaborate than the heist we already had to save the real Trinity from her pod. Though, through some convoluted bullshit, they managed to get her body out of the Machine City, but freeing her mind was still the challenge. Big fighting happens, and the day is saved by Discount Agent Smith, who is apparently just doing whatever the fuck he wants now. Whenever the fuck he wants. More fighting happens, and we discover Trinity can also now fly because love boners or something. Our protagonist escapes and returns to tell the Anal to go fuck himself so they can shit rainbows in the sky.
Wow. Wow!
Hey, that's what they said, verbatim. We're gonna make rainbows happen.
I mean... Oh my god.
Alright, Ryan, that is the movie. A lot of recasts of people here. I had to make sure we were all clear that none of that is racist. Ryan, do you want to start with anything, or do you want me to just jump into these questions? I feel like you have words.
I have words, but it's like... I don't know where to start.
Ryan, you say this movie is unnecessary. I don't disagree with you. You tell me though, what is so unnecessary about it? What about this movie is not convincing you that it's worth keeping?
It's not necessarily that the movie itself is not worth keeping. Like, I think the new ground that they're trying to break, the fourth wall that they're playing on, and I don't know, the changes that they make to reflect our current society, like, that's all valid. That's all very valid, and it's all a lot of fun. But I feel like the original Matrix trilogy was made because it was speaking speaking truth to power, in a sense, and it had like a very important message that it was trying to say. This movie feels like it's just trying to retread the ground that was already broken by the original trilogy. So it's not that it's bad, it's just that it feels like we've already said this. It's an interesting concept, it's an interesting twist to put on it, but it doesn't feel necessary. It doesn't feel like as emphatic as the original trilogy actually was.
So,
and that's why I'm just kind of like, ugh.
So that's fair.
We didn't need to do this.
So that's fair. I have been listening to some reviews because when it comes to something like Spider-Man or Captain America or whatever, I can generally get the vibes and the allegories pretty quick. When it comes to something I'm less familiar with or something I'm less well-read about, like Matrix, I do listen to other reviews and kind of like, okay, so what am I supposed to take from this that I may have missed? That kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And a few people who are much more well-read about it than me, they have said their takes on the film. And as such, They think so. Their proposition, their thesis, is the first movie is basically from 1999, 2000, whichever that was, is a call for rebellion, a call for action against authority, against corporations, against being controlled, and and helping build the world into a better place. At least that is what the original movie that they're proposing is. So, why would this movie tread the new ground? Well, what has happened since the last of the trilogy has come out? 2016 happened, when the last 4 years of that have been a complete shit show. We are in the middle of a pandemic. We're in the middle of a lot of people whose rights are being questioned. We have a lot of powerful authority figures, like the police and the former president and various other people who are abusing that power in some way. And so the allegory here is not so much that we're retreating old ground, but the problems that we had before are cropping back up again, and we need to bring ourselves back up to fight these problems again, because they never went away. They're back in different ways and different forms, and the message, or I guess the role that Keanu plays, is a tired and aged millennial, Gen Xer, what have you, who's been through this before and sees all this and wants to help, but he's like, I'm tired. I have done this. This is not my problem. I have to do something else. And you have all these younger people who are looking up to him because he is the legend. He's what made those original protests, the original rebellion, the original call to action work. And it did work, and they need to have that same energy, that same attitude again, to fight the new authority, the new problems, and that's kind of where we're at now, is that same... It's a loop of what we've done before, but if you look at any historical thing, that loop is always going to exist. And so it's just kind of using that loop, that historical loop, that continuous fight against authority to inform the message of this film. At least that's what they're saying, and I kind of see it to an extent, and I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on that particular take on the film.
I see where they're coming from with that, but it kind of shoots itself in the foot by starting off with that and then immediately having Neo say, well, fuck everything else, I have to get Trinity. You know, like there's kind of a, like, there's the look at it where, like, Neo represents a call to action against the corporate machine and just, like, the powers that be, but there's also the Neo that loves Trinity and knows that she's trapped in this system and wants to get her out. Like throughout the rest of the movie, after he's freed and he fully accepts that what he thought was a game that he made is real, and has fully accepted that he was this messiah figure, you know, it's not really the movement that moves him at that point. It's, I need to get the love of my life out of that system. So I feel like it kind of, you know, it kind of works against that idea, to have your protagonist not really be about the movement, but rather about his love interest. I don't know. So it kind of splits itself in two in that way.
I don't disagree with you, but I do think that from the internal logic of the film, it almost has to go that way, because I feel like either Neo knows, or he has this sixth sense about it, where he knows his power or his ability or his just willingness is half of what it could be without her. And you even see that take a literal shape at the end of the film, where it's like, oh, when they're together, they literally can do anything. But without her, he's a shell of his former self. And I think that yes, it distracts from the message, but I think it's because it's the mechanic they decided to go with for his character. And I don't know if there's a better way to balance it or what, but it's definitely interesting to think about.
It's tough. It's a bit tough, because that's kind of that's kind of the direction that the story kind of wrote itself into, even from the second and the third movie. Like from Revelations, the thing that separates Neo from the other iterations of the One is the fact that he actually fell in love with one person, as opposed to having love for humanity in general, because it's his love for humanity in general that leads him to constantly do what's best for the global amount of them, as opposed to just one person. And that's kind of what facilitates the pattern of the One that the machines have created. And the only reason Neo deviates from that is because of Trinity, is because giving up everything for the good of quote-unquote humanity also means giving up Trinity, whom he fell in love with, and he chooses something different. So it's his love for Trinity that actually enacts the ultimate freedom of humanity. But he doesn't make that choice for humanity. He makes that choice for him. He makes that choice for Trinity. And that kind of comes full circle, or it kind of comes to be in full display in this movie, because ultimately everybody else is looking at him like the savior of mankind, the Messiah, the person who's done all of this to bring about a new era for humankind and machines, and his focus, his primary focus, is getting Trinity. So it kind of muddles the message a little bit. Just a little bit.
Yeah. I don't think it's as muddled as 3 might have been, but 3 was also trying to do so many things at once.
3 was trying to do a bunch of shit. You're absolutely right.
Like, this one goes to basics, and its biggest messes come from trying to inherit the story that 2 and 3 left it. And you're right, navigating it is not easy. But I think for what it has to work with, it's not doing a bad job. It's just lost in the weeds a little bit because of how much work it's got to do.
Yeah. I mean, like, I definitely enjoyed this movie. I thought a lot of the directions that they decided to take were very, very interesting. I thought, like, Priyanka Chopra Jonas taking her role as Sati, but also really being indicative of the Oracle, was wonderful, because like before you find out who she actually is, everything about her character says Oracle, but really it makes sense because Sati was watched over by the Oracle when she was a child. So it makes sense that it's Sati, but she's very indicative of the Oracle because that's who raised her. That's beautiful. There's a lot about this movie that I really, really liked, that I very, very liked. But because the original trilogy holds such a high place in my mind, and such an important place in my mind, the concept of going back to that story and changing things or adding things to it and possibly fucking it up, it's like, you gotta have something really, really important to say to risk that. And that's where I think it falls short. I think it's good. I don't think it needed to happen. I don't think it had something so imperative that it needed to put out there to risk going back and fucking with the story that I love so much. That's what I don't like about it.
Now, I wonder if the movie would have flowed better and worked better if both Wachowskis had been on it, or if it wouldn't have mattered. I'm very curious about that.
I'm very curious too. I'm not gonna sit here and tell you that the Wachowskis are infallible because they did Jupiter Ascending. I'm not gonna tell you they're infallible, but I do have a strong belief in their storytelling. So
I just don't know.
I don't know. I couldn't tell you.
I just don't know if they work better solo or as a team. It's hard to really gauge that gauge. I'm not the most well-read Wachowski fan, but I'd be curious to see how that would play out. Like, just get Doctor Strange here, bring me that alternate universe. I just want to see what that looks like real quick.
Yeah. Real Wachowski fans are gonna see a lot of Sense8 alums in this movie, and that was hilarious to me. It was just like, hey, I know you. It's amazing.
Ryan, does this film seem to imply that Neo cannot exist without Smith, or that Smith cannot exist without Neo? Why or why not? I got a very Batman Joker vibe from these two, honestly.
You got you've kind of wandered face first into like my biggest issue with the, with this movie.
Okay, dive in. What do we got? What's going on?
I Smith shouldn't have been a part of this movie in the slightest at all. Like at all. Smith was a byproduct of the system who, in his interaction with Neo, understood the trap of the system and reacted to it in the complete opposite way of Neo. His idea was pure anarchy and just a complete... it wanted a complete dismantling of the system. So him showing up and saying, oh, I'm working for the machines again, is just like, what the fuck were the first three movies for then? Like, what do you mean? Why are you here? There's definitely kind of a symbiotic nature between the two of them because Smith was ultimately a company man. And it was his interaction with Neo that showed the flaws in the system for him, which triggered him to go on his own journey and become the polar opposite of Neo. So absolutely, they can't. Like, Smith can't exist without Neo, 100%. Whether Neo can exist without Smith is up for debate. I think that's possible because Neo's character acts as a foil to the system in general rather than to just one person. But Smith was really kind of... He was kind of a stand-in for the system. He was the personification of the system, which is why he came into direct conflict with Neo. And it's, like I said before, it's his interactions with Neo that showed the flaws in the system where he thought there were none. So that's what triggers his whole arc. So I feel like you have Smith in this movie just to kind of move some plot points along, and to have Jonathan Groff, who was King Richard in in Hamilton, which tickled me to no end. But I was just like, I know that person. I knew him. Damn it. But yeah, I think the idea of having Smith actually working for the machines again after all that had transpired in the first three movies was kind of a misrepresentation of Smith's character, or at least the character that had been developed in the first three movies. So that's why I didn't dig it.
So I didn't get the impression he was working for the machines again. I thought he was just a rogue agent, just doing whatever he wanted because he fought against the machine and the analyst at the end, didn't he?
He ultimately decided to fight against them, but I mean, at the end of the day, they're all working in a Matrix, in a brand new version of the Matrix created by Neil Patrick Harris's character, who is essentially a new version of the Architect.
An asshole version of it.
An asshole. I mean, well, the original architect was also a fucking asshole. He was just Neil Patrick Harris is just a different asshole. But I mean, ultimately, there was a bit more autonomy in Smith's character, which is why he was able to also kind of like partner up with Neo's faction for a brief moment. But he originally was working with the machines in some capacity, which is why he clashed with Neo when they came back originally. And that to me is like ridiculous. That to me just doesn't make sense in the slightest.
Yeah, his whole character arc was weird. I don't really have I couldn't put my finger on what was weird about it. Like, just the whole thing. I don't know. So, I guess the question is, would you replace that character with something else and still have that role exist? Or would you just remove it entirely because Smith is the only reason why it works and he doesn't work, period? Because, I mean, something within the machine, rebelling against the machine is a cool idea. And the idea that Neo would have an enemy work with him to stop the villain at the end is a cool idea. But I'm just not sure how else you execute it, though.
You can have the concept of a program being loyal to the machine, but then ultimately getting convinced to the rebels' point of view. You can do that. Like that's definitely doable. Having it be Smith, I feel, is a blatant play for nostalgia, but it also doesn't work with Smith's character. It doesn't make sense. He was like, Smith was literally poised to take over the Matrix at some point. Like, literally, the machines had to rely on Neo to save them from Smith. The fact that Smith would then turn around and ally with the machines in any capacity when it was all said and done is ludicrous to me. It's ludicrous to me. You can make a brand new program and then have Neo convince that person, and then and you have it play out the same way. But I feel like it was for nostalgia purposes. And don't get me wrong, I loved Jonathan Groff's Agent Smith impersonation, but it doesn't really make sense to me. It made more sense that the machines tried to make a brand new agent program mixing what they had of Smith's code with Morpheus's code. That made more sense to me. Them having the actual Agent Smith on top of Yahya Abdul Mateen II's version of Agent Morpheus didn't make no fucking sense to me at all.
Also, I have to applaud the agents for getting a diversity hire. That was good work.
Yeah, diversity hire with Morpheus. Morpheus is the token black guy. No!
I mean, we all saw it coming. Let's be real.
God damn it.
Ryan, can you explain the logic of the modal program that Neo makes and how it's supposed to actually work?
What is this? A fucking test?
To me, it's a program within a program, but like I'm kind of confused as to what the purpose was of it.
So, from what I understand of it is that they've essentially tricked Neo into being a programmer for the Matrix itself, but they've hid it in him making an award-winning game, and they're taking his work and applying it to the actual Matrix, like the actual program that's housing reality at this point. The modal concept makes sense as kind of a training program for their particular agent programs. So kind of having these separate instances where their programs can encounter different situations and then actively learn how to adapt and how to evolve in light of those situations. It makes sense for an AI. Like, it makes sense as a perfect training program for an AI. And them having Neo do it is kind of just salt on the wound, but also it makes a lot of sense because Neo was a very, very talented and gifted programmer in his past life. So him being able to actually work on his prison is just kind of irony. It's just kind of the icing on the cake.
It kind of is in a very what's the character's name? The one who pushed the rock up the hill, Sisyphus.
Sisyphus, yeah.
Very Sisyphusian.
Nice.
Sisyphus. Yeah, that word. Anyway, that helps a little bit because, like I said, the when you introduce programs within programs, that's when I'm like, okay, hold up a second, what the fuck is going on here? So I'm glad you could break it down a little bit for me there. Of the new characters that were introduced, are there any standouts for you that like you're like, oh yeah, this character's cool. Let's do more of this character.
I did actually really like the concept of Bugs, being as in Bugs Bunny, as in the fucking White Rabbit. I was just like, come on, all right, I like that. That's good. That was a lot of fun.
See, I didn't catch that. Now that as soon as you said it, I'm like, oh, that makes more sense. I assume Bugs like Bugs in a program, like they're fucking with the program.
Like they actually brought up, she's like Bugs as in Bunny, and I was just like, shit. All right, well played, guys. Like they actually try to make that clear in the movie.
And you can only do that if you're a Warner Brothers owned property.
Yeah, absolutely.
Synergy.
A very subtle flex by the WB there.
Synergy.
Bugs as in Bunny. And I'm like, fuck. All right, well played.
And by the way, that's my friends Rick and Morty.
All right, look, Tom. If you want to come, you're gonna have to follow me. And she like fucking takes her jacket off on her shoulder, and it's a fucking White Rabbit. And I'm like, damn, yeah, the rabbit. You have to follow the White Rabbit. Oh man. So yeah, I very much liked that idea. I liked the concept that there are agents within the machine world that believe in what the humans are doing. So you have like these Sentinel-esque machines that are working with them, and you have these digital-based AI that are also a part of it. Like, I thought that was really cool.
Ooh, got a podcat over here.
A podcat. Is it named Deja Vu?
Oh, that'd be nice. It actually is a black cat, though. Speaking of Deja Vu, let's talk about the Analyst real quick. Anyway, so Neil Patrick Harris, first off, great performance. Always fun to watch him in a movie or show or what have you. Do you think his character's good? Do you think he's a good foil to Neo? And what is his true purpose?
I mean, I saw him as kind of a more modern take on the Architect, which makes absolute sense since he is essentially the next iteration of the Architect who builds this version of the Matrix on the tension between Neo and Trinity. Like, I actually really loved how he put it, was by he's saying the conflict between what you want and what you're afraid to lose, that describes 99% of what most people go through. Like, I thought that was a perfect line. That was actually a perfect explanation, because like both of them have very, very good lives, both of them are ultimately unsatisfied in what they have. So there's a part of them that wants more, that wants the thing that they knew they had, but are also scared to lose what they have currently because they don't want to be without. That was perfect. That was beautiful, and I think that was a very interesting dynamic to build the Matrix around, because yes, most people are struggling with that choice, with that decision, and that's definitely going to apply to a lot of different people. So building this current iteration of the Matrix on both of them and putting them in those situations where they want more and they're unsatisfied, but they also don't want to lose what they have, was brilliant.
Gotcha. I did like that he did turn Neo's main power of the whole slowdown thing against him, because that's an interesting idea that we have not seen yet in the Matrix series. It's like, okay, so this actually is going to give Neo more of a challenge than you would expect. So, from a mechanical standpoint, I actually really do appreciate that.
Yeah, I mean, it felt a little gimmicky to me, a little bit. Honestly, it felt just a little gimmicky.
Yeah, I like a good gimmick. I will say him with the whole swarm thing is a bit much. I think give him one major ability and leave it there. I wouldn't give him too many things. Otherwise, it just seems like he's just cheating.
Well, I mean, the concept of the swarm has always kind of been there, in the idea that going into crowds is dangerous because literally any one of these people can become an agent immediately, and you're fucked. So being able to take over anybody and do that is like, it's just like a faster version of that, I suppose. So it didn't really strike me as new ground. It was just doing what they did before faster. You know what I mean?
Yeah, fair enough. If Neo was the one, Ryan, and to be fair, he was in the first three movies, and now Trinity can use the powers of the one. What does that mean for the roles of Neo and Trinity, respectively? Like, what's going on here?
Well, I mean, so I actually had a bit of resistance to this idea of Trinity also being the one. But like I had to sit and think about like what was going on and like why I was reacting that way. And it actually makes sense, the idea that the previous iterations of the Matrix were built around this one figure that had these additional powers, but were given them in order to kind of corral the 10% of the population that wouldn't accept the world at face value. So ultimately, those versions of the Matrix were built around this concept of the one. This new version of the Matrix that we're in was built around the tension between Morpheus and Trinity. The idea that they wanted what they had before, but they didn't want to give up what they have currently.
You mean Neo and Trinity, right?
Neo and Trinity, excuse me, yeah. So, in essence, this version of the Matrix is built around two people instead of one. Instead of only the concept of the one, it is their bond. And so it makes perfect sense that Trinity and Neo would be able to exercise those powers, since the world is built around them.
Okay. I was just kind of curious if it was like they split in half or something like that, or like maybe when they were rebuilt, they had some kind of cross contamination or something. I don't know. I had a lot of like very more physical ideas as to what happened, but I mean, honestly, that makes sense if you're programming it a certain way, and they're like at the core of it. Because they even say it throughout the film, like without both of them in there, the whole place will fall apart. Am I mistaken? So, so yeah, that makes sense when you put it that way. I guess the final question I have here, and I can open the door for anything else you want to throw in there. Speaking of which, this leaves the door open to imply more story possibilities. I assume you would say no, but would you be interested in seeing where this Matrix stories can continue? And would you and what would need to happen to change your mind, or what would you think they need to do to keep the series fresh and relevant?
Yeah, so no, I don't want anything. I don't want anything more. It absolutely doesn't need to be. It doesn't need. Look, we don't need more. We don't need more. It did. It gave what it was supposed to give in the original three, and this was, while fun and well done, ultimately an unnecessary addition to it. If you wanted to add more stories to it, I would want to see it involve completely different people with completely different stories. So rather than be held back by the baggage of like the previous now 4 stories, you could tell a completely different story and give a different point of view, and just have fun with it. The idea of the Animatrix being like 9 different stories that were
Loosely related.
loosely related, like within the same setting, but telling different stories of it, was really really cool.
I like the Animatrix
Because
a lot, by the way. It's really good.
yeah, like it was fantastic. Like, so I would want to see something completely different, like in the same setting, but a brand new story with new people in it. And even then, it would still have to live up to a very high standard, because the original story was amazing, and you didn't really need to tell anything beyond that. If you're gonna make a cash grab, it has to be very, very, very good for me to kind of give my seal on it.
I concur, but it's also the same argument I had for Star Wars, where when you brought the series back for more stories, I immediately said, hey, you got these new characters in? Great. Let's keep bringing in new characters, telling new stories. Space is a big place, guys. Tell stories of all these different perspectives about what's going on in the universe, and you can make a much better, more compelling world than if you just focus on the Skywalker saga. So,
Right, absolutely.
So I hope that the writers of this series, if they choose to continue, learn that lesson that Star Wars didn't, because holy shit was I disappointed when Palpatine came back.
Oh my god, I'm still so mad at that.
Mm-hmm. Actually, with all the requests for us to do an award, Ryan, or award show for the Iowa Film Critics Association, I have actually started making up some ideas for awards. One of which being the Golden Palpatine for the franchise that killed itself the fastest.
The Golden Palpatine! Sir! Oh my god. Oh my god! No!
Admit it, it's clever. It's cute. It works.
It's really clever, but no!
That is all I have for questions, Ryan. Is there anything else you want to add? Anything else I missed that you want to talk about? Or are you just kind of done with this one?
I
I don't think you hate this, but I think you're just not into it as much as you want to be.
It's just so... It's tough. It's tough, honestly. I was very, very worried. I was very, very worried about this. This is, I mean, it's no surprise if you've listened to us for a while, you know what a important place the Matrix story has on me in particular. And it's hard to revisit a story of that caliber, with just kind of a lackluster performance. I'm not saying this is lackluster. It was good. It was fun. I had fun with it. But you kind of had to have some extra oomph. You had to really be saying something to justify retreading ground that I hold as sacred in my head. So I feel like it was good, but I feel like it wasn't good enough to justify kind of disturbing the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You hear
It's
that
just
Matrix
tough.
4? You're not good enough. Get the hell out of here.
It's a high bar, but god damn it, if you're gonna do it, you have to do it. You have to do it. And
If you had to
and it didn't do it.
compare this to Star Wars ranking, like, so let's just say each movie in this series, it has like an equivalent quality level to a Star Wars film. Where would you put this on the Star Wars scale? Because in terms of how it's made and how it's functioned, what it's supposed to do, it's trying to be The Force Awakens. I get the feeling it's not a Force Awakens level movie for you.
I mean, it's just about there. It's just about there. The thing about Star Wars and the thing about Force Awakens is that you went into Episode 7 knowing that there were going to be 2 other movies. So, Episode 7 could retread old ground and not necessarily do anything super fucking mind-blowing because you knew it was the first of 3. You knew it. So it was like retreading old ground in order to kind of get its bearings and then take off to something new. That's what 7 was for me.
Well, especially because it was a new director and with a new studio, so you're trying to like say, "Hey guys, we can do it. This is us doing it. Are you ready for us to do new stuff now?"
Right. Also, you had to kind of wash the taste of the prequel trilogy out of some people's mouths because a lot of people didn't like the prequel trilogy. I'm not going to sit here and tell you the prequels were perfect, but they were had
cohesive.
some purpose. That they were cohesive, and there was purpose behind what they were trying to do. Like the story they were trying to tell was solid. They just didn't do
Messy
it
as fuck.
very well. You know?
Yeah.
So, not only did 7 have to establish itself for the next 2 movies, but it also had to kind of reset from the last 3 movies. So 7 had to do a lot of work. And 7 being essentially a shiny redo of 4 made a lot of sense because essentially J.J. Abrams was saying, we know what you liked about Star Wars. We can do that. We can do what you liked about Star Wars. Let me remind you of all of the shit that you fell in love with first. And now that you're there, and now that we've reestablished the baseline, let's grow on it in 8. That's what 7 was trying to do. I don't know if that's what this movie is trying to do, really. It doesn't feel like it's retreading familiar ground to get a running start on something new. It just feels kind of like, I don't know, it just feels unnecessary. Yeah.
That's a little disappointing. I mean, I get it, but it's disappointing. Yeah, I got really nothing else to add to this one. It's got depth to it that I'm curious about, but I don't think it goes deep enough to really hold a meaningful conversation like the first one did.
Yeah. That's really the thing.
Yeah, that's kind of a bummer because I think this is one of those movies, is one of those franchises that really relied on that to be its bread and butter, and if it can't measure up to that level, that it's definitely not going to pass the bar by any means. But we'll get to that here in a minute. If you want to reach out to us and tell us what we're wrong, what we're right, where we messed up on our philosophical shenanigans, you could email us or message us on Tumblr, Twitter, and Facebook. Ryan, if they want to email us directly, what is that email?
That email is... I'm having a hard time thinking of a fun email. That's how much I'm not really into this movie. That email is I feel like I took the blue pill at the beginning of watching this movie at excuse me. Sorry. That's evacstation@gmail.com.
Indeed. Don't we all take a blue pill every now and then? I think we all do. Ryan, if we're going to rank this movie from platinum to trash and all the colors in between, which is the part of the episode we're on, guys, just so you all know, where would you rank that?
Man, I'm going to give it a bronze. It's not a bad movie. I don't want you to listen to me and think that I hated it. It wasn't. I had fun with it. But the original trilogy set such a high bar, not only in just how it was done, but in the subject matter that it was talking about. And ultimately, if you're gonna make a sequel to it, it has to progress the storyline. It has to progress the philosophy that was put out by the original work. And I don't think it does that. I think it's fun. I think it's a good movie, but I don't think it goes beyond what it already said. It's repeating itself. So it's not necessarily a must-watch type thing. You can watch the first 3 movies and get everything that this franchise is trying to say thus far. If you didn't watch this movie, you wouldn't really be missing out. So, I'd give it a bronze.
I was tempted to give it a higher ranking, but after this conversation, I'm kind of bummed out about it.
I'm sorry. I watched it last night, and I was really trying to get excited about it. It's just like,
No, I'm just saying, like, there are moments of this movie that are genuinely interesting and some fun stuff happens, but at the end of the day, it's a movie that's kind of pretending to be the Matrix that we already had, and not doing it as well as it should be able to do it with the pedigree it's got, the actors it's got. Like, it's amazing how unable to recreate the magic it is, while still doing its damnedest to do it. Like, it's weird. It's a weird experiment I didn't expect to ever see. Is it a bad movie? No. You could definitely do worse. If you listen to the After Credits award show that comes out sometime in January, you will see exactly how much worse it could be. But, trust me, I have some fun ones. Like the Golden Palpatine. Anyway, you could do worse. I would say I agree with Ryan. Probably a bronze. Just barely misses silver on me, but that's only because, some of it does not work as well as it should. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's it for this episode. Tune in next week. If I did the schedule right, I will finally get those Kingsman episodes up. It's been a minute.
I've still got to see the original, the prequel, the Kingsman.
I haven't seen either. It's going to be a hot minute before I get to it, but I get the old episodes up at least. Get those going. If I don't get those up quick, it'll probably be the Marvel stuff and or Dune or Last Night in Soho. I've got a good back catalog to keep me busy for a little bit.
Nice.
But until then, tune in and we will see you after the credits.
Bye.